Ezekiel chapter 48, beginning in verse 1, it says, "Now these are the names of the tribes from the north end of the coast of the way of Hethlon, as one goeth to Hamath, Hazaranan, the border of Damascus northward to the coast of Hamath, for these are his sides east and west, a portion for Dan. And by the border of Dan from the east side and to the west side, a portion for Asher. And by the border of Asher from the east side even to the west side, a portion for Naphtali. And by the border of Naphtali from the east side and to the west side, a portion for Manasseh. And by the border of Manasseh from the east side and to the west side, a portion for Ephraim. And by the border of Ephraim from the east side and to the west side, a portion for Reuben. And by the border of Reuben from the east side and to the west side, a portion for Judah. And by the border of Judah from the east side and to the west side shall be the offering, which ye shall have 25,000 reeds in breadth and in length, as of one of the other parts from the east side and to the west side, and the sanctuary shall be in the midst of it. The oblation that ye shall offer unto the Lord shall be of 25,000 in length, and of 10,000 in breadth. And for them, even for the priests, shall be this holy oblation: toward the north 25,000 in length, and toward the west 10,000 in breadth, and toward the east 10,000 in breadth, and toward the south 25,000 in length. And the sanctuary of the Lord shall be in the midst thereof. It shall be for the priests that are sanctified of the sons of Zadok, which have kept my charge, which went not astray when the children of Israel went astray, as the Levites went astray. And this oblation of the land that is offered shall be unto them a thing most holy by the border of the Levites. And over against the border of the priests of the Levites shall have 25,000 in length, and 10,000 in breadth, and all the length shall be 25,000, and the breadth 10,000. And they shall not sell of it, neither exchange nor alienate the first fruits of the land, for it is holy unto the Lord. And the 5,000 that are left in the breadth over against the 25,000 shall be a profane place for the city, for dwelling, and for suburbs. And the city shall be in the midst thereof. And these shall be the measures thereof: the north side 4,500, and the south side 4,500, and on the east side 4,500, and the west side 4,500. And the suburbs of the city shall be toward the north 250, and toward the south 250, and toward the east 250, and toward the west 250. And the residue in length over against the oblation of the holy portion shall be 10,000 eastward and 10,000 westward, and it shall be over against the oblation of the holy portion, and the increase thereof shall be for food unto them that serve the city. And they that serve the city shall serve it out of all the tribes of Israel. And the oblation shall be 25,000 by 25,000. Ye shall offer the holy oblation foursquare with the possession of the city. And the residue shall be for the prince, on the one side and on the other side of the holy oblation, and of the possession of the city, over against the 25,000 of the oblation toward the east border, and westward over against the 25,000 toward the west border, over against the portions for the prince. And it shall be the holy oblation, and the sanctuary of the house shall be in the midst thereof. Moreover, from the possession of the Levites and from the possession of the city, being in the midst of that which is the prince's, between the border of Judah and the border of Benjamin, shall be for the prince. As for the rest of the tribes, from the east side and to the west side, Benjamin shall have a portion. And by the border of Benjamin, from the east side and to the west side, Simeon shall have a portion. And by the border of Simeon, from the east side and to the west side, Issachar a portion. And by the border of Issachar, from the east side and to the west side, Zebulun a portion. And by the border of Zebulun, from the east side and to the west side, Gad a portion. And by the border of Gad, at the south side southward, the border shall be even from Tamar unto the waters of Strife and Kadesh, and to the river toward the great sea. This is the land which ye shall divide by lot unto the tribes of Israel for inheritance, and these are their portions, saith the Lord God. These are the goings out of the city on the north side, 4,500 measures. And the gates of the city shall be after the name of the tribes of Israel, 3 gates northward, 1 gate of Reuben, 1 gate of Judah, 1 gate of Levi. And at the east side 4,500, and 3 gates, 1 gate of Joseph, 1 gate of Benjamin, and 1 gate of Dan. And at the south side 4,500 measures, and 3 gates, 1 gate of Simeon, 1 gate of Issachar, 1 gate of Zebulun. At the west side 4,500 with their 3 gates, 1 gate of Gad, 1 gate of Asher, 1 gate of Naphtali. It was round about 18,000 measures, and the name of the city from that day shall be, The Lord is There. So, this is the finality of Ezekiel. Chapter 48 is the last little stretch that we have in order to complete the book, and as we can see, it's basically just a written representation of the inheritance of each of the tribes. Each tribe gets a certain amount of land in a certain place, and we start with Dan at the north, and then we move ever southward, and then we get to Judah. And once we reach Judah, the book or the chapter takes a big giant space in order to describe the city that is in Judah. As Judah is the tribe of David, it's the tribe of the prince, and it's also the tribe from whence Jesus comes. It is the tribe where their land shall have the oblation, the sacrifice, the set-aside portion for the holy city of Jerusalem in the millennial kingdom. And then we move down, and we see Benjamin, and we see Simeon, and we see Zebulun, we see Gad, Issachar, Zebulun, and Gad. So we won't look at any maps today, but my plan for next week is to maybe have a quiz or two, and also to take a little bit of time during that time after we finish the quizzes to look at some maps of some things, just to go over and get some final review of some of the things that are described in the book of Ezekiel. So we won't be looking at a map today, but I will say that this will, whenever we do look at the map, a lot of this is going to make a very clear picture, I think. And there are some conflicting maps that you see, which is why I don't want to take too much time to actually look at it. I basically just want to get the words in and get the understanding that you have Dan, and then you have Asher, and then you have Naphtali, and then you have Manasseh and Ephraim, which are the two half-tribes. So basically you have Joseph has a section, and then you have Reuben, then you have Judah, and again, after you have Judah, you have the oblation between Judah and Benjamin that would belong to Judah, and it's got the place for the Levites. So the Levites don't have their own actual inheritance in the same way that all the other tribes do. They have this set-aside piece that is for a very specific purpose, that is not to be used as farmland. It's not to be used to raise livestock. It's a special holy place. It is for Jesus there. It is not for the people exactly. It is for Jesus, and then for the people who are serving his purpose there in his kingdom. And so you still have here 12 tribes plus Levi, as the two tribes of Manasseh and Ephraim are split apart and each receive their own inheritance. One thing that we want to understand here is that this is a real place. This is not some made-up land grant. This is not some made-up symbolic metaphor. In that day, this will be the place where each of those tribes lives. And if you're a member of the tribe of Dan, you live in the Dan area. If you're a member of the tribe of Gad, you're all the way at the bottom. You live in the Gad area. If you're a member of the tribe of Reuben, you live in the Reuben area. It's not going to be something that's like, what we're reading here is the rules and the boundaries of the kingdom. This is if you go and you wanted to go to, I don't know, the county PVA, and you wanted to read about all the different parcels, and you wanted to look at the maps of who owns what, and this parcel number is here, and you're taxed on this parcel number, and the person next to you is taxed on their parcel. There's no crossover. You have what you have, and that's what it is for the tribes here. They have what they have. Now there will be transactions occurring, and we've read about that over the past couple weeks. There will be things that happen in which so-and-so comes from their tribe, and they may move into the other tribe, but at the time of the Jubilee, everything goes back. Everything returns to the way it was. So there is no permanent transaction that causes any land from any of the tribes to permanently enter the possession of another tribe. God has a system set up for that. So we see this description here of the city that will have the Levites in it, and specifically there will be a place for the sons of Zadok. So we look here, and we're just going to move forward all the way, skipping verses 1 through 7, and we're going to go to verse 8. It says, "And by the border of Judah, from the east side unto the west side, shall be the offering which ye shall have 25,000 reeds in breadth, and in length, as one of the other parts from the east side unto the west side, and the sanctuary shall be in the midst of it. And so what you have ultimately, it's between Judah and Benjamin. This area would have belonged to Judah, but it's being set aside. And so you have these 13 sections on it. If you were to look at the map, you'd see 13 sections. This is one of them, and it's actually one of the larger sections. And it says, the oblation that ye shall offer unto the Lord shall be of 25,000 in length, and of 10,000 in breadth, and for them, even for the priests, shall be this holy oblation toward the north, 25,000 in length, and toward the west, 10,000 in breadth, and toward the east, 10,000 in breadth, and toward the south, 25,000 in length, and the sanctuary of the Lord shall be in the midst thereof. And so, give or take, you're looking at the city itself, including the outer walls, with each of the north, south, east, and west walls having 3 gates. You're looking at, give or take, about a 64 square mile plot of land, depending on which cubit you use and how precisely you want to measure this reed. It ends up being in the neighborhood of about 64 square miles. 64 square miles is a pretty large area. There's a lot you can do with 64 square miles. There's a lot of people you can fit into 64 square miles. I mean, if you just imagine the city of Lexington, or you think about Columbus, or you think about Huntington. Columbus is closer than any of those to having 8 miles by 8 miles and just full jam-packed full of people and businesses and things going on. And you can see the city of Columbus. It's, I think, number 14 or number 15 on the most populous cities in the nation. It's got over 1 million people in it, and it's, I don't know the exact area of it, but if you go 8 miles one way and 8 miles another way, you're bound to be outside of Columbus at some point in time. And so you can have a very large population. You can serve a very large number of people. You can have a large number of things going on in a space that size for that city. Now, that city is not going to be a city that we're familiar with here. It's not going to operate the same way. It's not going to have the same kinds of things. Remember, it's going to be a holy place. It's going to be an oblation. It's going to be set aside. You're not going to have people running their tax offices out of this city. You're not going to have people running, their farms out of this city. You're not going to have people, running all of these different types of businesses in this city. It just won't be happening. It's a special set-aside place. It will be a place for the holy things of God and for the people who perform those things. Now, there will be an area set aside, on the east side and on the west side, that will be profane places, as we read. And by profane, that does not mean evil. It does not mean bad. It does not mean cursed. In the same way that the Latin word vulgar was originally used to mean common, that's the same way this word profane is used here. It's the things that aren't holy. It's not the actual set aside part. It's the profane part, the common part, the part for the living areas, and it is not. So we'll just read here. It says in verse 9, the oblation that ye shall offer unto the Lord shall be of 25,000 in length, and of 10,000 in breadth. And for them, even for the priests, shall be this holy oblation, toward the north 25,000 in length, and toward the west 10,000 in breadth, and toward the east 10,000 in breadth, and toward the south 25,000 in length. And the sanctuary of the Lord shall be in the midst thereof. And so this is the square city. This is not New Jerusalem. This is not that city foursquare. This is a different city foursquare. Okay? The city of New Jerusalem, going by the measurements, would be more like 1,500 square miles. And not only 1,500 square miles, but you'd cube that, because not only is it 1,500 length and width, it's 1,500 in height too. It's got the same height, and so it would actually extend outside of the atmosphere So it's a good thing we're going to have a new heaven and a new earth, because that doesn't seem like it'd work very well on this earth with our atmosphere. But anyway, getting back to this city, we see in verse 11, it says, "It shall be for the priests that are sanctified of the sons of Zadok, which have kept my charge, which went not astray when the children of Israel went astray, as the Levites went astray. And this oblation of the land that is offered shall be unto them a thing most holy by the border of the Levites. And over against the border of the priests, the Levites shall have 25,000 in length, and 10,000 in breadth, and all the length shall be 25,000, the breadth 10,000. They shall not sell of it, neither exchange nor alienate the first fruits of the land, for it is holy unto the Lord." Then it says in verse 15, "And the 5,000 that are left in the breadth over against the 25,000 shall be a profane place for the city, for dwelling and for suburbs, and the city shall be in the midst thereof." And so they're going to have the profane place on either side, and the city is going to be in the middle of that, and that's where the suburbs and the living and dwelling places are going to be. Now the priests will have, the sons of Zadok, they'll actually be able to live within the walls. But the other Levites and anybody else, they will live outside those walls in the profane place. And so that is the idea that we get here. And so moving down to verse 19, it says, "And they that serve the cities shall serve it out of all the tribes of Israel, and all the oblation shall be 25,000. By 25,000 ye shall offer the holy oblation foursquare with the possession of the city." Then in verse 21 we see, "And the residue shall be for the prince on the one side and on the other of the holy oblation, and of the possession of the city, over against the 25,000 of the oblation toward the east border, and westward over against the 25,000 toward the west border. Over against it the portions for the prince, and it shall be the holy oblation, and the sanctuary of the house shall be in the midst of it." And so these profane places on each side, they belong and are inherited by the prince. Now, there's going to be people living on the prince's land that the prince will govern, but as far as who owns it, the people who live there and dwell there in the profane place, they're not the ones who are the owners of the land. That is the residue, it says, shall be for the prince, the stuff that's outside of that, the possession of the holy city. Verse 22 says, "Moreover, from the possession of the Levites and from the possession of the city, being in the midst of that which is the prince's, between the border of Judah and the border of Benjamin, shall be for the prince." And so, verse 23 says, "As for the rest of the tribes, from the east side unto the west side, Benjamin shall have a portion." So we see this area, again, is between Judah and Benjamin, officially the land grant from Judah to Benjamin. I believe this would have belonged to Judah. And it now is, again, part of the holy oblation, part of which the prince owns. The rest of it is for this holy city. And it basically, the holy city is in the same place today. If you look at a map of where Jerusalem currently is, that's where the city of Jerusalem will be. The holy city within those confines, and then outside of that is the Foursquare area. And so it's in the same place. It's in the same place that God has chosen to set his name. In the past, he's going to choose to set his name there again. And we know that because in verse 35 it says, "It was round about 18,000 measures, and the name of the city from that day shall be, the Lord is there." And I looked up what that would be in Hebrew, and that would be Yehovah Shammah, or we might say Jehovah Shammah, which just means the Lord is there. That's going to be the name of the city. So it won't exactly, they probably won't refer to it as Jerusalem. They'll probably just basically call it, the Lord's there. That's the name, because he's there. When you go to the city, you're going to where the Lord is. You're going to, the Lord is there. And so that'll be how it's known and how it's described during the millennial kingdom. The presence of Christ is going to be made known even in the very name of the city. So, there won't be any confusion about who is there. There won't be any confusion about what that city is for. There won't be any confusion about what its purpose is, and it even down to the very name of it. So, there's not really a whole lot else in this chapter, because again, it's mostly just describing objects on a map. And like I said, we'll go over the maps. I want to go over a few different ones, either before or during or after we take the quiz or quizzes that we end up doing. I'm thinking about just doing one because there's so much information that is so very specific to maps and things like that, and to things that are very visual, that I don't know if I'm going to quiz everybody on maps, or if I'm just going to say, here's the map and do what you will with it, and if you get rid of it, that's your own fault. If you want to keep the information for later and let that seep in, then there it is, you can have it. I think that's probably how I'm going to handle it, and then we might have one actual quiz. We've got plenty of time for comments, questions, and this doesn't just have to be about Ezekiel chapter 48. We've got about 10 minutes or so to discuss really anything about the book, any questions that anybody has had throughout our study on Ezekiel. Regardless of which major division that we've divided the book of Ezekiel into, regardless of whatever division that we've been studying, the main theme has always been underlying this book, the glory of God. Whether the glory of God is there and is present, or whether it's withdrawing, or whether it's gone. The whole theme of the book rests on the glory of God. And what we're seeing in this last major section, it's the return of the glory of God and the manifestation of His glory in His new kingdom. So, if there's anything that you take out of this book, and you take out of the knowledge that we've tried to sift through, and the things we've tried to study through, I would ask that everybody remembers that this book is about God's glory. You can get a lot more specific than that. And I would like it if everybody in here would be able to get more specific than that. But at the bare minimum, if you understand that Ezekiel is about God's glory, then we've accomplished something. So